Chapter 1. Beginning of religious life for women. There were no monasteries or convents in the land of Malayalam in those days, except men had the privilege of priesthood. As for women, though they had the desire to live the chaste life, they had no option. God's response to the cries of women. The house at Manannam was raised as a monastery by the goodwill and generosity of Bishop Bernardine, then the Vicar Apostolic of Kerala. Attempt to construct a convent at Puttampally in 1860. Foundation was laid. 13 feet high. Compound wall was being constructed all around. Later the construction of the convent was stopped, and turned to be a seminary due to Rocco's schism. Rocco's schism. A Syrian bishop defying the Holy See arrived from Babel. Most of the Syrian churches went over to his side. Many souls were being lost. There arose a great need for more good pre-saint. Accordingly, the plan for the convent changed into a study house for the seminarians. Arrival Father Leopold Beccaro in December 1859. Father Leopold Maria of St. Joseph, as a subdeacon, arrived at Varapura, but he stayed in the monastery at Kunimmavu. He was the present delegate for monasteries. The uniqueness of Muppachan. Learned Malayalam language within 4 or 5 months. Novice master. Taught the novices Latin language. Attended the spiritual needs of the people of Kunimmavu parish. Helped people to lead a new and virtuous living through spiritual directions in confession. Meeting with first candidates. Widow Elishwa and her only daughter Anna. They belonged to a Kail house commonly known as Vadakkan, who lived in Kunimmavu. Father Leopold was their confessor. They expressed their desire to lead a life of chastity till their death. Eliswa, chastity according to that of a widow, and Anna, a perfect chastity of a virgin. Testing the vocation, given them directions, instructions and guidance. Often tested them in various ways to confirm their genuine vocation. Permitted them to receive the Holy Communion once or twice a week. He tried to nurture and protect their desire for chaste life. Land for the bamboo mat convent. Eliswa and Anna had some land and paddy field which was on a loan. The interest on the loan was mounting up to the point of debt, and was at the point of losing the land. So this property was taken from them to make a small house in it. Both of them could live there to strive for their own spiritual well-being and teach young girls prayers and virtuous practices and train them in various handicrafts. The purpose of the congregation. On a certain day in September 1865, Muppachan told all about Eliswa and Anna to Kuriakos Elias Chawara, then the Prior General of all monasteries. He was so happy and promised to do all that he could towards it. Archbishop was also informed about it. He too was happy and allowed them to live in a house made of bamboo mat. Archbishop gave Muppachan the constitution and asked him to translate it into Malayalam. Muppachan learned that the given constitution was of the third order of Carmelites who lived their family life, and the bishop asked Muppachan to begin at first with the same constitution. Bishop's permission and constitution. Bishop was consulted again, and the first members obtained our rules that were translated to Malayalam. Muppachan walked around the whole property and found a suitable place to build a convent. Muppachan entrusted this work to Toman, the uncle of Anna. Under Muppachan's guidance, a new pathway was made to the church. Toman had the goodwill to carry out the work of the convent. Lacked the funds required. By the grace of God, some donations were received from the people of goodwill in accordance with the request done Muppachan and Prior Akan. Vocation of Thresher, the sister of Elisua. She was of 16 years. She declared not to have an earthly marriage, rather she will accept Jesus as her the only spouse. On 10th February she was brought to Kununnuvu by her parents and her brother Louis the seminarian. Exposition of the Blessed Sacrament for 3 days was newly introduced in the Kununnuvu monastery. Immediate preparations for the candidates. To make new dress for candidates, the cloth was bought from Kochi. They were asked to stitch them by themselves. On 12th February, Monday, Mupachan called all the three, Elisua, Thresher and Anna, and he heard their confession. After the confession he instructed them to keep their dresses ready. He asked them to go early in the morning to the church, attend Holy Mass, receive Holy Communion and ask God's blessings to remain in this state of life till death. Stay in the church itself praying until someone calls you. Come the convent through the newly made path along with your parents and relatives who are permitted to come. Arrival of Elisua Puttunangadi at Kununnuvu on 11th of February 1866. She was a Syrian Catholic belonging to the Vaikom parish. Daughter of Kotaki Vedyan. She was given in marriage at the age of 14 and lived 10 years with her husband. When she was 24 years her husband died. She attended the Holy Mass every day and received the sacrament of confession and Holy Communion frequently. As Prior Akin knew that she was leading the life of prayer and meditation, she was asked to join the convent only if she desires. When she decided to join, her relations raised many objections and caused many hindrances. Still she dared to join. Though she reached with all the things, she was asked to wait until Mupachan interviewed her. Inauguration of the Bamboo Mat Convent. 13th February 1866, Tuesday. At 5 in the morning Mupachan and Prior Akin came to the Bamboo Mat house and minutely checked the things needed in the house. List of things. A clock. Wooden clapper. Vessel of holy water and white bottles for bringing the holy water from the church. Wooden cross for each room. Framed pictures of Christ, Mother Mary and Saint Joseph. Wooden board for the outer gate and the enclosure. Small table and bench in the every room. Long table and bench in the refectory. Porcelain plates to take food. Big bowls to take kanji and buttermilk. Small bowls for salt and curry. Earthenware tumblers to drink water. Spoon and fork. Privy and stool. Books such as Catechism, Bible history, rules for a model holy life and directives in each room. Ink and ink bottles, quills, small knife to sharpen the quills, scale and pencil, a box of needles, a ball of thread, card thread, silk thread, pairs of scissors, pen knife, stylus, wire and pliers to make rosary and penitential girdles, bedroom lamps and wax rolls to light lamps, 2 candlesticks and candles in the prayer room. Kitchen knife to cut the vegetable, garden tools, small spade, flower pots and different types of plants such as rose, jasmine, konkani flower etc. A long thick strand of thread to make wicks for the lamps. Pieces of useful old clothes. A chest with 2 keys to write down the requirements to inform, 1 key for Mupachan and the other for Superior. Brown cloth and clothing printed with the image of Mary to make scapulars. The fathers themselves arranged everything in the room. Common things kept in Superior's room such as things for common work, common books for refectory and spiritual reading. Inaugural ceremony. The candidates called from the church accompanied by our relative who are permitted and many women friends. We walked along the newly made pathway towards the convent. Chapter 2 One More Candidate. The reception of the first sister after the institution of the convent. On the 14th of February, Wednesday, itself Mapajan called the above-mentioned Eliswa to the confessional and again heard her confession, conducted her examination and gave her Holy Communion. Then our superior said that Thresher had eaten almost nothing the previous day and that she had some difficulty in leaving her mother. Let Sister Thresher herself say how she feels now, he said. When the thought of my mother comes I have difficulty. Then I try and remove it and it comes again, she said. He convinced her, by giving his own experience. When I joined the monastery I also had this sort of memories and difficulties for about 3 months. When Sister Anna was asked about how she fared, she said that the clock was not showing the right time. When the church bell rang at 12:00 in her clock, it was 1 p.m. Sister Anna is not missing her mother, does she? Well, let God provide us another convent and then Sister Anna will be sent there. He then added, one more sister has come to join you. Are you willing to receive her? We are only happy to have one more sister with us. At once, he asked Prior Rackham to call her. Immediately the sister, with her uncle and another man who was carrying her box, mat and other things came. She came and kissed Mapajan's scapula and waited there on her knees. Are you willing to live here and serve these sisters till your death? She replied that she was willing. If you are willing to do so, kneel down before the superior and tell her, please receive this poor me, too, as your servant. Immediately she got up and went to where the superior and other sisters were sitting. She knelt down before the superior and made the request to her. Then the superior said, we are poor beggars. We are willing to accept you, sister, as one among us and we are quite willing to live together on the aims God deigns to give us. After this she was directed to kneel down before Mapajan. When he began the rite of giving the scapula, he asked her what her name was. Hearing that it was Eliswa, which was the name of both the superior and the helper, he changed her name and gave her the name Clara and received her into the third order of the Sisters of Mother Saint Teresa. Since there were only 3 rooms, 3 cots, etc., Sister Anna's room, cot and other things were given for the use of Sister Clara. The things that Sister Clara brought were to be kept in common and used as if they were all of spirit of one family. In order to show their charity and commonness even in words, they were commanded not to say mine, yours, hers, etc. Instead they were to say, the room I use, the cloth Sister Anna uses, the bed sheet I use, and so on, and that it should really be so in word and deed. After this he showed us how to make rosary and he made us do it by ourselves to ascertain that we had actually learned it. By our rules we were permitted only 1 confession and 2 Holy Communion a week. But he gave us permission to receive Holy Communion during these 3 holy days of 40 hours adoration. They came again on the 7th day bringing a new clock that would run for a week and also a crucifix. The refectory was divided into 2 and the cot and bench and other things needed for the new room. Other articles needed for work, rosary beads, wire, a pair of pliers to make the rosary, more bed sheets and cloth that were required were all brought and given. Thus we were being taken care of with great concern and love. The sorrows and tribulations we endured soon after establishing the convent. During these days, smallpox was prevailing in some places around. Such situation that our helper was laid up with very high fever and vomiting. Another trial. Found the snake at the door of the room used by Sister Clara and our superior killed it. The next day, when we came from the church after Holy Mass, there was again the mark of the crawl of a snake along the side of the convent. When we went for confession, we told our Father Mapajan and Prior Rakan about it. They said, "Do not be afraid. When we come again we shall bring for you a medicine." For snake bites, one of the medicines was to be put into a tumbler and mixed well with water and given to the person to drink. The other medicine was to be smeared on the bite. Penance for not writing chronicle. He asked us to eat our one midday meal on our knees and to sacrifice a half of one curry. Fear of snakes. Superior heard something moving under the cash box. She sent for Procurator Toman to kill the snake, and when the cash box was removed they saw a small frog beneath it. Sister Anna's sickness. On the 14th of April, Saturday, when Sister Anna came back, she said that she was not feeling well, and asking permission of the superior went to bed. On getting the information, Mapajan and Prior Rakan came at 5 p.m. itself, bringing with them the prescribed medicines and also Vedyan from Kochi. They went to Sister Anna. Mapajan asked her, "Aren't you willing to die? We have come to bury you." When he asked her a second time whether she was willing to die, she replied that she was buying a new plot for the convent. On the 24th of May, visited us and instructed us very specially on the practice of humility and obedience. Trust in God and God will come to your aid. Do not put your trust in us, for we are only like the hammer in the hands of blacksmith. You are angels in the world. You must be like jasmine flowers. Annual retreat in the convent and the monastery. Penance for carelessness. Seeing that the sanctuary lamp was not clean, he scolded all three of us and asked us to make 3 crosses with our tongue on the lamp on the 28th of June 1866, when our Father Mapajan and Prior Rakan went to lay the foundation stone for the convent. Our Father gave us the following advice: "Oh, my dear children, that are not the way you should love. That sort of love is like a passing wind. True love is not like that. It is like this: you must think that all are souls created in the image of Christ and love all in the same way." 3 things to remember: humility, giving up self, purification of souls. The first one is humility. You must think that you are like the mud or like the dust that is swept out, and you must lower yourself, come down and down to the earth. The second is giving up self. You must give up your will completely and nail yourself on the cross with Christ. The third is the purification of your souls. When a statue maker takes a log of wood for that purpose, he does not immediately take it to the room where finished statues are kept. Resar's boldness. The government officials came and asked them to get out of the house. "We have come here with the permission of the bishop, and we will not go without his permission." Trusting in God, they continued to stay there faithfully, keeping their rules and directions. Thus they won over the government officials, the people and the world, and all made peace with them. The 4 virtues to practice: humility, obedience, charity and poverty. Meditate on the Passion of Christ for a few minutes. After that, fixing the eyes of your heart on the sacred wounds and praying to wash your soul clean, with the most precious blood flowing out from those sacred wounds, you must recite 5 Our Father, 5 Hail Mary, and 5 Glory Be. Preparation for Christmas. On the 18th of November, when our Father Mapajan and Prior Rakan came to the convent, they brought us a statue of baby Jesus. The statue of baby Jesus should be then kept in the room of the person making the retreat. The miracle by infant Jesus. There was a slight rain. Water oozed through and fell on the table where the statue of baby Jesus was kept. So we went and looked if water was falling where Jesus was kept then. But there wasn't even a single drop falling. Chapter 3. Various prayers introduced. Formal prayers in the refectory, the recital of canonical prayers and the sprinkling of holy water by the Mother Superior are introduced. Canonical prayers. Our Prior had translated the canonical prayers from both Latin and Syrian languages with its explanation. The effect of holy water. Even though this holy water stoup was intended for the new convent, we brought it now considering the great effect of the holy water. Financial help from Archbishop. The 8 rupees that is given now is more useful to us than double the amount given some time later. So you are bound to pray for him. Study of Latin language. Our fathers had brought with them a copy of the biography of our Mother Saint Teresa which was written in Latin. Sister Thresher fell sick. She would vomit if she got up. Superior informed our fathers. All right, now you will not vomit. Get up and go to the chapel and see the infant Jesus enter. Shepherds. Napoleon asked her. See, what all things the shepherds have brought. What will you give him? Napoleon asked her. She said, I will give myself. Days of abstinence. If the feast of Mother Saint Teresa, Mary Mother of Carmel and Christmas fall on the days of abstinence you are exempted from it, but on all other feasts you are bound to abstain, Prior said. Training in handicrafts. Our delegate Napoleon was in search of a woman to train us in handicrafts. At a place called Fort Kochi, there was a woman called Francisca who made woolen articles. In the year 1866, towards the end of September, when Prior was away at Miliatur to collect funds for this convent, this Francisca was brought by her mother and others. Napoleon entrusted her with the work of teaching us. Napoleon sent 2 flower bouquets as models so that Francisca could make similar ones, but she could not make them well. And she made a habit and a scapula and was thus living happily with us. Napoleon sent her the biography of Saint Teresa, the book of Thomas à Kempis and such other books in the English language and asked her to read to us. But she never read a word from the book to us. Expelling Francisca. When the procurator of the monastery went to Kochi, she sent word, without permission, to bring some bread and sugar from her home. Coming to know of this, Napoleon scolded the procurator and kept with him the bread and things he had brought. Somehow Francisca came to know of this. From this Napoleon inferred that she was not really willing to give up the pleasures of home and the love of relatives. The day after Epiphany, her papa, mama, brother and many others came to see Francisca. Immediately she asked the Mother Superior to let her speak a word to her father. Mother Superior told her to get permission from Napoleon. Napoleon sent a letter asking Francisca to come to the church with the helper. She went to the church and returned only in the afternoon with much sorrow and anger because Napoleon was sending her off. You, too, must thank God. For, one such element is quite sufficient to spoil all others. Even if just one little thing should happen without the knowledge of the Superior, let this convent be burned down to ashes at once. Detachment from the world. Shun all your thoughts that go beyond this enclosure, as you would the thoughts against the 6th commandment. The 3 important virtues. Humility, obedience and charity. Obedience. I am going to tell you a simile concerning you and a crucifix. Suppose the Mother Superior tells one of you to go to that fence there, and bring her a golden crucifix from there. You should go immediately, without any hesitation. Superior tells you to go and catch the crow. At once, you must go to catch the crow and haven't caught it. You must go to the Mother Superior and humbly tell her that you could not catch it. Attitude towards Superior. Your superior may not be intelligent or may be ignorant, but it is your duty to consider her as your God. You must kneel before the superior and ask permission for every act that you do. That is for speaking, for moving your body, for breathing, for spitting and for anything and everything you do. Deny yourself. On the 21st of January, when our Father Mupachan and Prior Rakon came together to our convent, they brought the statues of Jesus, Mary and Joseph, Saint Teresa and Saint John of the Cross. You must give up your own will completely. You must be like a corpse which does not react to anything may and whatever be done or said to it. Let your concern be to lower yourself and humble yourself. You must be competing with one another to see who is more humble. Remember that the respect you show to the superior is actually shown to Jesus Christ himself. My daughter, you do not obey when I command you once. It is because I do not want you to sin again that I do not repeat the command. Remember that even an uncharitable word will be a mortal sin for you. To those who do not obey, they wrote and brought the regulations to be observed for the faults and also the penances that may be practiced in the refectory. Providential hand in the construction of the convent. It is only God's miracle that we were able to get such a big compound near the church and that we were able to put up this building. So you too have a duty to pray for all the benefactors who have donated for this purpose. Now, when you are given such a modest area, in order that you may always think of God and love Him alone, and then if you go and seek things other than God, you will go to hell. The meditation must be evaluated by your deeds. Tears and spiritual joys can be given even by the devil. But the devil cannot make you do an act of charity or an act of humility. For spiritual life, meditation is a must. Our Mother Saint Teresa, who has been praying to God in heaven, has given you this good will. Chapter 4. Towards the New Convent. The construction of the new convent and our entry into it. We were given the brown scapular of Mary our Mother on the 13th of February and we started residing in the convent made of bamboo mats. Our superiors Father Delegate and Prior Rakon said in words of good wishes, God will give you a strongly built convent before it is time to rethatch and renew the leaves of the roof and the bamboo mats of this hut. Our fathers by their efforts and their letters, inspire some persons, to give us some donations. With this amount, on the 13th of June Saturday, the foundation was laid for the convent. Construction of two-storied building. On the 8th of September, after the feast of the Nativity of Mary, the foundation was dug up along both the eastern and western walls that ran north-south. A killwood at a very low rate. Once or twice loans were taken from the monastery. Then a man came and offered to give us good akilwood at the rate of 3.5 rupees when the rate was 8 or 9 rupees. Often when we feel that the money is over and think that we can stop the work the next day, an amount comes to us from somewhere. Akilwood. The generosity of Givargis from Elapura. Prior Rakon gave him the necessary letters. He came back with 300 rupees tied up in a virti, a bag made of rush mat, of which 100 rupees were his. New convent ready for stay. Thus by God's special grace, Within 6 or 7 months an amount of almost Rs 7,000 was collected as donations. So without replacing the old coconut palm leaves, God was calling us from the old house to the new one. Dear sister reader, if they who had not given birth to us had so much of concern for us, how much more would be the concern of Jesus Christ, our first and highest superior, who created us out of nothing, brought us up, shed his blood to the last drop and gave up his life to save us. Some modifications in the chapel. With the permission of the Archbishop, 2 walls were built touching the western wall of the Eucharistic chapel and new roofing was done. A window facing northwards was closed up and was converted into a confessional. First anniversary of our entrance to Bamboo Mat Convent. On the 7th of March, the Thursday after Ash Wednesday, we spent a day in prayer before the first anniversary of our entrance to the Bamboo Mat Convent. We made our confession and received Holy Communion in the newly renovated chapel. Many big and small pictures for the chapel, the 14 pictures of the Stations of the Way of the Cross, the cloth to make habits for us, etc. They were all packed in boxes and sent to us by our fathers. Preparing the religious habit. The 19th of March, the feast day of Saint Joseph, was approaching and we were asked to make our dress soon. Though we could not complete everything perfectly, because of our inability, we managed to stitch and make 4 habits and scapulars. A new road was made and on both sides 6.5 feet high fences, like convent fences, were put up. Thus our new way to the church was made clear. Digging a well, garden, fence and so on. Having thus settled with the kitchen, they turned their attention to the vessels and implements required there. A big copper pot, a frying pan, a cauldron, an axe, a chopper, kitchen knives, chisels, hammer, drill, a mason's shovel, garden spades, pots, pitchers, pans, earthen water flasks and such other articles were all procured. To the newly built convent. On 26th March, Tuesday, 4 or 6 men worked till evening carrying all our things to the new convent. We were told to pack and keep ready all our things in boxes and to send them to the new convent the next day. Inauguration of the new convent. On the 27th of March, Wednesday, as instructed, we entered the chapel and offered the Holy Mass. The religious clothing of first 4 members. Prior Rackham came and lit the 4 candles on the altar. Then Mapachian asked the superior, according to the regulations, "What do you request?" She replied, "I desire to join the 3rd order of Carmelites and the rest." The habit, the scapular and the headdress were blessed and she was clothed with them. First a prayer was said. The religious clothing and the shawl covering the head was of the first 4 removed and the habit was put on the neck. Then she was made to tie her cord as belt. After that the scapular was given. Lastly the big veil was unfolded and put on her head. After this a lighted candle was given to her. Holy water was sprinkled on her. Then she was made to get up and kiss the center of the altar. She genuflected in the middle, came to the father delegate who clothed her, knelt at his feet and kissed his hands. In this same way, secondly and now thirdly Thresher and fourthly Clara were clothed. Blessing of the convent. Beginning with the prayer room, the fathers entered every room, blessed it and sprinkled holy water in it. In the night when you go to sleep, take the small bench, which is in your room, and keep it beside the cot near your head. Then take off your habit and scapular and keep them on the bench and go to sleep. But you must know that the small brown scapular you wear must not be taken off even while sleeping. Things arranged in the new convent. Materials for doing penance. the new member in the new convent. Granny from Intingu. Transmit the spirit of poverty. A means to become saints. By learning the works with great interest. Training in handicrafts. Training in handicrafts. Chapter 5. A new lifestyle evolves. Father Mupachan and Prior Akan instructed us. Humble yourself and come down. Think that you are mere mud or the dust that is swept out. Obey the Mother Superior in all that she commands you, thinking that Jesus Christ Himself is commanding you. In charity and love, you must all behave as if you were one. If one of you gets fever, you must all feel that fever. This convent was not made by me or by Prior Akan. It was God who made us do it for you. This convent was made not to admit saints because the saints will go to heaven, but this convent was made to admit sinners who desire to become saints. Arrival of Thresher Tiliot. In May 1867, our Mupachan came to our convent and told us that 2 more sisters would soon be coming for us. One was from the Puttainpulli parish of Varapura. She, Thresher, was the daughter of Givargis Tiliot. 1 more member in Namanjurar. The day after, the second sister was received, on 3 LST June, and now aged 17, who belonged to the Manjuran family and the parish of Chikkarukkidavu. Because the 2 newcomers had the names Thresher and Annar, Mupachan gave the second Thresher the name Miriam Thresher and to the second Annar the name Mariana. Testing the quality of vocation. On 3rd September, when Mupachan came, with regard to Shrista Miriam, the Mother Superior, Sister Annar, Sister Thresher, Sister Clara said that she has humility, obedience, abnegation of self-will and good intelligence. It is good to admit her into the order. Prior Akan prepares the rite of religious vestition. When we were vested before, as there were no others in the community, we did not follow all the regulations. Now Prior Akan wrote and brought all the directions completely. He made one of us read and we listened to, and he explained to us every ritual and its meaning. When he went, he left the written directions with us, so that we may learn and know how to call the new sister and what to respond, etc. The ceremony of religious vestition. Miriam from Vaindarute. On 9 September, Prior Akan and Father Delegate came together to the convent at 2 p.m. and told us that our Blessed Mother had brought us a new sister. After getting our consent on accepting the new candidate, they returned to the monastery. At 4.30, Miriam, a 15-year-old girl from the parish of Vaindarute, Kochi, was sent to us with our procuratress. Relics of Saint Teresa and of Saint Philomena. On the 13th of September, our Father Mupachan and Prior Akan came together to the convent. They brought for us the relics of the bone of Saint Teresa and Saint Philomena, which Mupachan had previously promised us. Saint Teresa has indeed blessed you and accepted you. As a proof of this, she has deigned that at least a considerable portion of her bodily remains be deposited with you. Tuesday dedicated to Saint Teresa. I do not mind if you have nothing to eat or drink, even if one of you should die or get sick. Because Jesus is standing at the door, He will ward off all such things. But your self-will can be given up only by you. Mindfulness, a way to holiness. Observation of the Constitution. Advice of Prior Akan on canonical prayers with heavenly choirs. Teaching the method of meditation. First anniversary. Advice of the Archbishop. The scandal by Thresher Tiliot. Expulsion of Miriam Thresher.
Chapter 6. New members. A new sister was received and 2 new sisters were given the holy habit. She was given the name Mariam Thresia and put her in the room of Mariam Thresia who had left. How to cast vote. So, on the 16th of December, we cast our votes for Sister Mariana first and then for Sister Mariam Magdalena de Parsi. By the grace of God they were all white. Vestition ceremony following full regulations. Come, O spouse of Christ. The responses and the pronouncement of the vows were all carried out accordingly. If you think that it is difficult for you to observe these rules and regulations you have here, say it now itself before your parents and relatives. Then you can go back to the world now itself. Setting aside the day of your baptism, the next greatest day in your life is this day. Most important virtues. Humility, obedience, charity. He repeated the same. Humility, obedience, charity. I wish to speak to you only on these 3 words the whole of this day. Humility. You must desire to be the least among all and the least of all. Under obedience, even if you find it unreasonable and difficult to understand, you have to accept it with joy. Thirdly, I curse the sister who becomes the cause of uncharitableness in the community. Opening of the boarding house. The crib. Previous year there was only a small crib and a small baby Jesus. This year a big baby Jesus was given to us. We kept it well arranged on the altar. The crib was usually made under the altar in the prayer room. Sister Clara appointed as boarding mistress. A painful test. Here is an account of a temptation that came to teach us that this was a work very much pleasing to God and quite painful to the devil. Indebtedness toward Prior Akan. Our father Prior Akan has suffered a lot in his old age on our account. On the 15th of February, 3 girls by name Thresia, Ilazwa and Cecilia from Poole in Kanutopil were admitted in the boarding house. On the 25th of February, Tuesday 1868, when we would be completing 2 years of the foundation of the Bamboo Mat Convent, all of us including the girls of the boarding house and those in the kitchen, should receive Holy Communion. A nun with stigmata. Clothing ceremony of Mariam Thresia. Chapter 7. The Profession of Vows. Permission of the Archbishop. Before a king marries a young girl, she is only a girl. But when the king has married her, she becomes a queen, a loyal woman. Similarly, when sisters are married to the King of Heaven, they become queens, royal women of heaven. Profession of Vows. If you die on the day you make your profession, you can straight away fly to heaven without touching purgatory. By your profession of vows you become transformed into consecrated virgins. Obligations of a vowed sister. Instruction on obedience. If a superior or a mother superior, by word or in writing, tells a sister to do certain thing or to go to a certain place under pain of obedience or excommunication, and if she does not carry it out, she commits a mortal sin. Instruction on chastity. She must with great contempt ward off all temptations and such other things that are against the vow of chastity. And the vow of poverty. By the vow of poverty one has nothing of her own. All that she uses she must use thinking that they are just borrowed for use. Poverty is not wearing dirty clothes or wearing torn clothes without mending them. Patched clothes, stained clothes, torn clothes and dirty clothes are all different from one another. On the 6th of May, the granny who had been brought from Youth and to teach us certain handicrafts was paid rupees 25 and sent back to Youth and her native place. On the 23rd of July, the girls Mariam Vadek Clotho from Alapuza and Anna Venu Mutil were admitted in the boarding house. The letters that inform the illness of the Archbishop. Letter 1. Oh. Loving little children, our Archbishop received his viaticum, last Holy Communion. He was unable to speak and he beckoned to our Mupakin and by means of actions communicated, to tell you to pray for him. He has also asked to start an novena for him. People have gone to Kochi to consult the senior doctor. If you have already made the novena to Saint Joseph, it will be good to make the novena for favors, to Saint Xavier. Where it is written, here add the intention, you must and this grant the grace of bodily health to this Father of ours. After reciting the novena say 3 Our Father, 3 Hail Mary and 3 Glory be. It will be nice to say the litany of the Blessed Virgin Mary at the end. The rest is left to your discretion. Letter 2. Oh. Loving children, our bishop is in great tribulation. He received the last sacraments. His state is very painful. Both his hands and his feet are burning with heat, as if on lyra. We are cooling and pouring water on them, keeping the spathe pala of the arecanut palm underneath his hands and feet. You pray for the will of God be done. Letter 3. We see that there is a slight improvement in the condition. Here is the command to inform you to pray ardently and with hope. Prior. Letter 4. Loving children, today the Archbishop is not better than yesterday. I have not lost hope. Yet I see no other effective means but prayer. Today I came here in a great hurry, and I am going back just now. Pray. Pray. If he gets well I shall ask for a special blessing for you. Letter 5. The Archbishop is saved. His sickness has left him. Only weakness remains. See the power of prayer. Continue to pray. Doing the little acts with great love. Do every day your admission of faults and failures. Your penance in the refectory, sweeping the floor, washing dishes and the works according to your duties. Instruction on effective admission of faults and failures. God has made you the foundation stones of this convent. The amount of care with which you observe your rules and constitutions will be the measure in which those who come after you also keep them. Disturbance from a drunkard. Some said that they thought it was the devil and others said that it was a drunkard. Then he said, if it is a man, I will go anywhere and get him caught. If I do not get, believe, it is the devil. You desire to die as martyrs, don't you? Then why not let yourself die at the hands of a drunkard? If a thief comes, you must stand at the window and ask him why he came and with whose permission he came, he commanded. On the 4th of September, a girl from Aleppo named Ilazwa Atavli was admitted in the boarding house. On the 7th of September, 2 girls from Aleppo Threzia Chenakat and Ilazwa Kanjaradhinyol were received into the boarding house.
Monasteries were established at Kunamavu, at Carmel Vazhakulam and at Elthuruth. Monasteries were established at Kunamavu, at Carmel Vazhakulam, at Elthuruth in 1855. Attempt to construct a convent at Puthenpalli in 1860. Attempt to construct a convent at Puthenpalli in 1860. On a certain day in September 1865, Moopachan told all about Elishua and Anna to Father Kuriakos Elias Chawla, the then Prior General of all monasteries. On a certain day in September 1865, Moopachan told all about Elishua and Anna to Father Kuriakos Elias Chawla, then the Prior General of all monasteries. By the grace of God, some donations were received from the people of goodwill in accordance with the request done Moopachan and Priorachan.